Hello my friends, and welcome to World of Stands. We finally made it. This game was in demo like 30 million years ago, and then it just kind of fell off the face of the earth for a while, and I hadn't really heard anything about it. I asked some people in my streams every once in a while about it, and they said something about December, and I just kind of didn't pay it too much mind, to be honest. In my old video a while ago when I was talking about the demo, I talked about all sorts of different things, and a lot of those things have been changed, albeit I don't remember exactly everything I said. But basically the goal of today's video is to kind of do a quick first impressions sort of video about World of Stands. There's a fair amount of people playing right now, so I figure it just makes sense to make a video on it. That being said, I do have to get one thing out of the way, and that thing is, where the hell was this and why did it take so long? Well, excuse my low effort on this video ahead of time because I'm throwing this together the day before I'm supposed to upload it, but the game released on the 31st of December. That's New Year's Eve at 7 p.m. Well, I had plans to go out with my friends on New Year's Eve, and that was at 8 p.m. But I knew that the launch of this game was going to be a nightmare because all of the launches of these games are a nightmare, and so I was like, I have to at least get on for a little bit. So I logged on for about an hour before I had to leave, and I got exactly what I wanted. Some background on why the first little bit of launching these games is always so bad. Or at least I'm pretty sure why. Every new player that logs into one of these games creates its own data set. When you have a lot of people logging into a game for the first time and they're all creating new data sets, well, you probably see where this is going. So if you're wondering things like how could they not have tested this and why did the game break when it came out and you couldn't do anything, that's probably why. I can't say it with 100% certainty, but it's very likely. That being said, if you weren't there, what happened at launch? Well, you couldn't play at all. So if you walked outside after getting the first quest, you can't kill any of the thugs. Your attacks go right through them, it does nothing. This player was in shambles. We waited for this? It will never not be funny. This guy somehow managed to aggro the NPC, but then couldn't fight back, so I guess he just stood there immortal. I asked him if he was having fun, but he never got back to me. I ended up leaving the server hoping I could find another server that worked, and all I got in the process was successfully making it so that I couldn't even attack anymore. So now I can't attack, and the enemies can't take damage. Now that's gameplay right there. No, but I'm not gonna knock them too much on the launch issues here, because again, I feel like a lot of this stuff is unavoidable, but I knew I had to record it anyway, because I figured it'd be pretty funny, and it was. What about the actual game? Well, the one thing that I will say is I'm not gonna talk too much on the storyline, because I felt like it was actually pretty good, and I actually kinda gave a shit for once. At the beginning of the storyline, it seems like it's just going to be treading through part 1 and then probably part 2, 3, 4, etc. But you very quickly learn while going through the storyline that there's more going on than just a rehash of Jojo parts. The story doesn't seem to be anything Shakespearean so far, but at the very least it's something different, and it's the first game I've played in any of these games where I was even remotely invested in the story and wasn't just blowing through all the dialogue so I could move on. I only really ran into a few hiccups while I was going through the storyline. The first was when the game wanted me to go talk to this guy, and I missed the fact that you're supposed to pick up a letter inside of the crane when you go to talk to him. So I just went straight to talk to him, and it just didn't work, and I was really confused. You don't get a map marker or anything, it just says go to the top of the crane, so I did, and then I saw the guy, went to talk to him, nothing. That was probably not the game's fault, but it was an issue I ran into. And the other issue is, well, it's really whack. So as it stands right now, they're supposed to have part 1 and part 2 of their storyline done. And at the end of part 2, you fight a boss, you beat him, and he's supposed to give you yacht keys, which you then use in a yacht, and that's the key item you need to access the domain, which is on Ersaplena Island. The problem is, apparently, from what everyone's told me, the second domain was so unbelievably broken and untested that they just removed the yacht keys from the game so that you can't go there. So there's currently, as of recording this, no possible way to get to the final domain, so I can't really talk about it. The first domain is the same as it was in the demo, so I don't really have much to say there. So that's the storyline. What about the game itself? Well, the first thing I noticed is that in terms of gameplay, things feel really smooth, and that's a good sign. Roblox's Unbreakable is the game that I think has the most potential in the genre other than YBA right now, but the big problem they have is that their game just feels like ass. It's very difficult to explain, but when controls are not good in a game, it's a bit of a yikes. I remember complaining in the demo that World of Stands did not have a block buffer, and here it is. It's here now. Overall, the combat seems mostly completely unaffected from the way it was in the demo, so I don't want to just completely go over all the stuff I already talked about. I will still touch on a few things though. I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but it feels like there are very little, if not basically completely zero cancelable attacks in this whole game. Like, the only way you cancel an attack is by ragdolling someone. If you hit them with an attack, it just does nothing. I don't know how heavily that hurts the overall combat, or if it really hurts the overall combat at all, but I do think it's something that's worth mentioning. And I do still sort of take issue with the fact that the speeds in terms of how you move gets changed when you enter combat, so you go fast outside of combat, and then you get into combat and you slow down heavily. With that slowdown, when there's stands that have movement abilities, that sounds like a nightmare. I was using Weather Report for a good amount of time, and Weather Report has this move that summons a cloud and makes you go fast as hell, and I can totally see you just being completely uncatchable with Weather Report. Like, you could just stall in circles forever because you can't catch them because you're so slow. I don't know if that's a realistic issue, but I think it will always irk me that I can't sprint, and the game just arbitrarily controls my speed. It feels like it takes away my control. And in terms of taking away control, that same kind of philosophy applies to the normal M1 attacks and the barrage. For whatever reason, these attacks manually try to move you towards the opponent when you use them, and I'm not sure what the design philosophy is here, other than maybe attempting to make them more consistent. But all it really does is make it feel like the control is being ripped out of my hands. If I start using a barrage and it starts pushing me towards the opponent, and then I'm like phasing in the opponent while trying to use it, it just feels off. I don't know how else to put it. I don't know if there was a technical reason as to why these things are the way that they are, but again, they're worth touching on. Now, the real two big problems in a sense, and I put big in quotes because they're really not that huge of a deal, is the fact that it's stupidly difficult, seemingly, to get rokas and arrows, and the fact that the progression is questionable at best and feels forced at worst. Starting with the rokas and arrows, it appears that the only way to get them is by opening chests, which I don't know if they respawn, I hope they do, and by doing domains. Problem is, doing the domain only gets you one item, as far as I know, even completing it on Nightmare difficulty, and completing it takes a long time, especially if you're by yourself. I don't know if it's here to encourage you to try to work with other players, which, I mean, I can respect that, but even with other players, I can still see this taking a really long time. And when you consider that you only get one item for doing it, it's a bit of a yikes. You can also get items from leveling up your potential, but that costs a lot of money, so good luck with that. It just seems like they course corrected way too much from the demo. In the demo, it was dummy easy to get stands, and you could just, like, get hundreds of arrows, and now in the main game, it feels impossible to get any of them. So if you get really unlucky with stands you don't like, it really sucks. Maybe I'm just directly missing something, maybe there's a shop somewhere around here, maybe there are easier ways to acquire stuff, but from the amount I've played, I just haven't seen it, and I've seen a lot of other people saying the same, so we might all be wrong. Who knows? But what about the progression? Because that was the big gripe that I had in the World of Stands demo, and that potential page is here. So what happened? Why did you say it felt tacked on or forced? The reason is because the progression just doesn't really have any impact. I don't know how else to say it than that. I think this is strictly personal. I think this is just limited to me, and I think that a lot of other players just don't care. So this probably isn't as big of a deal as I make it out to be, because it really only hurts me. But for me, the way they handled the potential tab just feels like the developers were like, what? You want progression? You want progression? All right, here's some minor stat bonuses. There you go. Good luck. Have fun. And the problem with that is, again, it just doesn't really feel that impactful whatsoever. Oh, I do 2 more damage. Whoop-de-doo. Wonderful. I always hate to draw comparisons to YBA, so I won't. Instead, I'll draw comparisons to RIU. Haha, got him! In Roblox's Unbreakable, unlocking a move and completely getting a new move to use feels a lot better than getting a 4% damage increase. And it's one of the reasons that I said in the World of Stands demo that it was kind of odd that when you roll a stand, you just unlock all the moves by default. I think there's definitely a certain charm to slowly unlocking your moveset, because without it, really that's all we get. We just get some minor stat bonuses, and that's it. I can't speak on the actual choices that you have to make in terms of those stat bonuses. I don't know if you have to be careful, or if you get to max level, you can just max out everything and become a god. I really don't know. I have not played enough to find out. I will say that if you can just max out everything and become a god, then this got a whole lot worse than it already was. But I hope not. The progression flaws don't just stop with the potential page though, they also extend over to the stand potential page. Because upgrading your stand abilities has some of the most backwards mechanics I've seen, and then some of the best mechanics I've seen right next to each other, and I don't know why. For some reason, the developers at World of Stands decided that the only way that you can level up and make some of your skills better is to fight actual players. Why did you do that? And the weird part is that some of your other skills you get better by doing damage. So some skills are leveled by hurting real people, and some skills are leveled by dealing damage. In other words, if you're new especially, you can level up some skills and straight up can't level up other skills without basically resigning yourself to dying or actively harassing other people trying to play the game. I don't know how this wasn't thought out before they decided this was a good idea, but in my experience and from what I've played, it's a bit of a nightmare. There were more than a few times while I was playing this game where I would be talking to an NPC and I would get out of the dialogue and someone would just start hitting me for no reason while doing the same quest. And I know why. It's because they went to their stand potential page and probably had kill X players with this, or knock down X players with this. And as someone who's completely new, like, why is that at the start of the unlock tree? And the real problem is this is only gonna get worse with time. Think about it this way, in 2 or 3 months, a lot of people are gonna level up their favorite stands and have them maxed out. Now, you take that person and you put them up against somebody who's currently trying to level their own stuff, and they're gonna get their ass kicked. Maybe they won't get their ass kicked, but they're at an objective disadvantage the entire time. And the only way that they can get up onto the level of those other people is to fight them at a disadvantage. I'm completely at a loss as to who thought this was a good idea and why. I'd love to hear the developer insight on what the decision making here was, because from my perspective, it just seems very, very strange. And it also seems like one of those things where people are just gonna pull their alt account into here and level up their skills that way because they can't be bothered to do it another way. And that's what I've already heard from people. That's what people have told me. They're like, don't bother, just get an alt and grind it that way. And looking at that, I'm like, what? Well, what's even the point of the system if the best way to deal with it is to just circumvent it? Why bother trying to progress naturally when you can just pull on a random alt and beat them to death? So I don't know. Like I said, those are the two big things, the progression and the feeling of the game. Other than that though, I mean, the game's okay. I'm not here to destroy it. That's not why I came on here. It's alright. People are probably gonna ask me, do I think it's going to last, or Is it the YBA killer? Well, I'll tell you, it's definitely not that, but will the game last? I don't know, I think that's probably up to the developers themselves. I mean, Stand Upright Rebooted's still around, right? So just about anything can stick around, if that thing can. But honestly, I don't think I vibed very much with World of Stands to begin with, and I think you can see that in the videos that I made on the game, and I don't really know if I ever will quite vibe with the game. And I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. There isn't like some deep-seated hatred for the game, and it's not like I came in here looking to dislike it. I was actually looking forward to see what they'd changed from the demo. But overall, coming out of here, I'm just a little bit, not disappointed, but I guess I'm whelmed. I'm not overwhelmed, I'm not underwhelmed. It was kind of what I expected, and what I expected wasn't phenomenal, but also wasn't god-awful. Mediocre, I guess. I don't know how else to put it. Hopefully they'll fix that Part 2 domain, and I can play that and see if it's any good. But other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot else here for me to cover. The game sort of is what it is. If you enjoy it, great, and if you don't play it. Not much else to say. With that though, I think I'm done here. Sorry that I couldn't give better feedback, but like I said, this is the first time in a while where I feel like I just can't explain myself. I don't like it, I don't dislike it, but I don't really know why. Anyways, that's all. So if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't do those things. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.